Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. It's nice to see everyone in the morning. I'm not used to that. I'm Andrea Keene, Chair of the Wayzata School Board. I call to order our special meeting for the Wayzata School Board for Tuesday, June 1st, 2021. This meeting will be live streamed on the district YouTube page as well as recorded and available to view on the school board page of the district website. On Friday, March 13th, Governor Walz issued Executive Order 20-01, which declared a peacetime state of emergency pursuant to his powers under the Minnesota Statutes, Chapter 12, Emergency Management. This allows school boards to meet by conference call or other electronic means under Minnesota Statute 13D.021. Before we begin, I'll go through a couple of Zoom reminders. Please identify yourself when speaking, mute your microphone while listening. Please do not make use of the chat feature. And in an attempt to ensure all voices are heard, each board member will be called upon for each agenda item. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Good morning, absolutely. Cheryl Poseen. Here. Bonita Lucky, here. Sarah Johansson.
Here.
Linda Cohen.
Here.
Chris McCullough.
Good morning, I'm here.
Cian Falconer. Chase Anderson.
Here.
Andrea King.
Here. Thanks, Benita. All right, we've got 3 items on our agenda this morning. First, we have administrative reports and recommendations. I'll turn it over to Chase to talk about our first item, policy approval.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board and staff members on the meeting with us this morning. Thank you for joining us. We have before you today some modified, some recommended modifications to our school district's masking policy. As I think many on the screen are aware of, not all, this has been kind of an ongoing review with a lot of updates and frankly, a number of interpretations that have come from MDE, MDH, and probably other organizations as well. We have brought before you today recommended revisions to our masking policy. And in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to 3 of our staff that are on the meeting this morning. Jenny Ebert, our Director of Community Education, Dave Lutz, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and Dawn Wilson, our Supervisor of Health Services. So I want to thank all 3 of you for joining us and for working on this and for kind of understanding the details and nuances of it. We're trying to navigate through how to best have this policy in good form to help us conclude the regular school year, prepare for summer school. And it's probably too early to know how to prepare for the fall, so the policy is likely to come before you again a time or 2 is probably the right way to say it prior to the startup of the school year. So I think if I speak further, I'll demonstrate that I don't have the level of knowledge about the modifications to the policy that Jenny, Dave, and Dawn do. So I think what I will do is turn it over to, I think, Jenny, were you going to lead us off with this morning? And I'll make sure, do you have co-host rights yet? I probably need to give you that.
I do. I screen share, so thank you.
Screen share, there you go. And then I think you were going to show us the version with edits so that the board is well versed on what the recommended changes are. So you should have those sharing rights.
Great. Let's see. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, looks good, Jenny.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Jenny.
Great. So as Chase mentioned, there's been a number of updates to guidelines from the Department of Health and the Department of Education, as well as the Department of Human Services, which oversees certified childcare programs, which is our Wayzata Kids childcare. And particularly last week, we received some clarifications on what the executive order, the latest executive order 2123 meant. And a big piece of that was that face coverings were no longer required outside of the instructional day. So that clarification really meant that our policy needed some updating, because where we've been as a district is throughout this whole year is that we've really followed closely what the Department of Health, the Department of Ed, and the Department of Human Services has been telling us And as their requirements have changed, we've changed with those requirements. So now knowing that that is no longer a requirement and is now just a recommendation, we wanted to make sure that our policy was in alignment with that recommendation. So what the policy, which I'll show you in a second here, I'll scroll down, we'll share that it's no longer a requirement outside of the school day. The only time face coverings are required is during the instructional day, on buses, and then in our Wayzata Kids childcare program, because that's what the Department of Human Services is still requiring. Additionally, I think it's important to note, Chase said that potentially this policy could change a few more times. We wrote it hoping that we could reduce the number of changes if at all possible, to provide that flexibility to basically say, we'll stay in alignment with whatever the most current guidelines are. So you'll see some of that language reflected in here. We do know that Department of Ed and Department of Health and DHS have told us that these guidelines will go away or will expire on June 30th, or when 70% of all Minnesotans age 16 and up have received at least one dose of the vaccine. So we're at 65% as a state right now, shooting for 70. So at the latest, these guidelines will go through June 30th, assuming nothing else changes. But if things stay the same, these guidelines would then go away on June 30th or earlier if we hit that 70% earlier than that. So with that, some changes, they're highlighted in green here. So adding the latest executive order, that 2123, adding kind of this language that allows us that flexibility that says this policy will be effective until these various guidelines change. So including that Department of Human Services guidelines for childcare, and then the safe learning plan requirements. The most substantial change is the one that I noted around face coverings not being required outside of the school day. So letter D reflects that, saying that it's only required during the instructional day while riding the bus and in out of school time programs for childcare Wayzata kids. So extracurriculars and other things outside of the instructional day would not be required. We did use the exact language from MDE though, saying it is strongly recommended that anyone who's not fully vaccinated continue to wear their face coverings inside school facilities. This next one was a fairly minor change, basically allowing us some flexibility in when face coverings are used outside, and just saying we're going to continue to follow whatever the latest requirements are from MDE, MDH. And Dave can speak to this a little bit too. Dave, do you want to weigh in quick?
Sure. We're keeping our practice consistent. I talked to principals this morning, just checking in to make sure that this policy supports our practice. And right now, the biggest discussion piece is usually around recess at the elementary. And our practice has been that we have students maintain their cohorts when playing outside, but that they don't need to wear a mask when they're in those cohorts. If for some reason students need to go into another cohort, we do recommend or request masks at that time. But for the most part, students stay in their cohorts, and then they are able to be in recess or play outside without the mask on. So they can choose to wear a mask, obviously, but they don't have to.
Thanks. And I just want to note for the group that got together for the policy committee that met last week, if there are a few items on my document that are highlighted in yellow because those were additions that were made since we met. So this used to say MDH recommendations, and we changed it to requirements, knowing that we really want to follow what MDE is requiring, and that recommendations will be just that, recommendations. So the regulations then that shifted was to remove an item that was talking about the safe learning plan, requiring staff to wear face coverings and shields. That had been shifted to a recommendation, and really is just a practice that is available for staff. And we felt it wasn't needed as part of this policy. And then the removal of the word temporary, and adding in at the end of this list of times when masks aren't required is in school buildings outside of the instructional day for sports or extracurriculars, and the exception of Wayzata Kids childcare. And the last change the last two changes was around making distance learning available, knowing that that will continue through the end of the school year, but it's not a requirement of the summer programming. And letter C reflects that similar piece that we're hoping this new updated policy will pull us through June 30th. And so removing those two pieces really keeps us alignment with what's coming through the summer. Those were the changes made to the policy. Don, did you have anything to add, or Dave, that I might missed in this review?
No, I have nothing to add. I think you and Dave did a great job of sharing the new guidance.
One piece I will share for the principals that I spoke with today, and I think it goes without saying, but we're just trying to maintain some consistency in these 7 days we have left of the school year. So that's one of the pieces everybody said. We're just gonna hold, minimize changes for these 7 days and finish strong.
Yeah, Dave, I think that's a great point. As we talked about whether we needed to update these policies now or wait till the end of the school year, that was something we weighed really carefully, knowing that we wanted to be consistent and clear for our staff and students, but also wanting to continue to be really responsive to our community, and knowing that all along we've said we're going to follow whatever the requirements are for MDE and MDH. Since those requirements change, that's really why you're seeing this policy change now. So really trying to strike that balance with following requirements and providing some consistency for our staff and students as much as possible. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Jenny, for walking us through those changes. Thanks, Dave. And thanks also to the policy committee for your continued work on this policy as it keeps changing. The recommended action before us is to improve the updates to policy 103 and the regulations, face coverings as attached in your board book. Could I get a motion to approve?
Yep, this is Chris. I move that we waive the reading of this amended or revised policy, and that we also waive the second reading and move it ahead for a vote on approval today.
This is Sarah, I second.
Thank you. Okay, let's see if there's any discussion. Shara Polzine, any discussion?
Just a clarifying question. So this policy will become null and void on June 30th. Is that what I heard you say?
We believe that unless we receive additional guidance, it's our understanding that the requirements of the Safe Learning Plan, the requirements of Department of Human Services and the Department of Health have all said that their requirements will end on June 30th. So if they all end, we would either need to update our policy to choose to do something different, or we could let the policy expire with those.
Okay, great.
Can I add something to that? This is a little unorthodox, I suppose, but we had a discussion about that very topic, Cheryl, at one of our last policy committee meetings, and there is a process by which we can essentially leave policy 103 in place, but it essentially becomes dormant. So we have a placeholder for the numbering, if you will, but we can come back and revisit the substance as things evolve over the summer. So it won't really, the number won't go away, but the policy may have to evolve depending on what happens over the course of the summer.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thanks, Cheryl. Any discussion from Sarah Johansson?
I just want to say thanks. This really does feel like it's threading the needle and trying to stay true to our dual commitments of one, just landing these next 7 days and being consistent in our buildings, and also responding to guidance as it happens. So thanks to the policy committee for fleshing that out a bit. Thanks to our admin for really looking at trying to weigh all the competing interests. And it does feel like this can get us to that point. And I look forward to a year when we don't have version number. I don't even know the number of a policy to come forward. So thanks all.
Thanks, Sarah. Any discussion from Bonita Lucky?
No discussion, but thank you very much, everyone.
Cian Falconer?
No discussion. Thank you.
Linda Cohen?
Thank you to everybody who worked really, really hard on this. I'm wondering if there is any rationale behind the guidance that it is required still to wear masks during the school day, but not, or instructional day, but not required after that? Is it because there are fewer people in buildings, or I wondered if there was any rationale given for that. It seems a little contradictory.
You know, the MD email that came out clarifying that guidance really did not provide any rationale attached to it. Chase, I don't know if you received any additional guidance, but from the information that I read, it just basically said, here's the clarification on how we interpret the executive order. You know, in my mind, I guess one potential would be the school day as a required time versus after school are optional activities for the most part.
Yeah, I might just add on that. I don't recall any specific bullet point list of rationale, but I'm assuming it's probably related to the fact that schools have been through so much change this year and relatively close to the end of the year. There was probably a default into, let's not make this one more change and make it confusing for everybody. Let's have school districts stay the course with the instructional day through the end of the year. And then we'll you know, make some accommodations for after school. So really the things that happen during the course of a school day are mostly school functions, if not all school functions. Things that happen after school can be school functions, but they also cross into a number of youth sports organizations and facility users, and they probably just thought it would simplify it and start moving toward what they were anticipating would be the summer and hopefully the fall protocols, and give an early entrance into those protocols. So plus the, you know, everybody's school year kind of ends at different times. So I suppose they were seeking some continuity for teams that play other school districts teams and all that, and, you know, and using the facilities in different districts and getting some consistency. But I have not seen that in a written document. Those would be my assumptions based on what would kind of make sense.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, any discussion from Chris McCullough?
Before I forget, huge thanks to the whole team. This has been an incredibly fluid situation all year, in addition to all the other things that are fluid right now. So having to tackle policy and regs along the way is no easy feat. So thanks to Jenny, Dawn, Jeff, David, several others on Chase's team. So huge thanks there. The only question I had is there, are we intending to send out any formal communication district-wide updating any of this, or has that maybe, you know, gone out?
I guess my recommendation would be that we not send out any additional communication, as I think principals can communicate within their buildings regarding any operational things. I'm afraid it might just create unnecessary and added confusion and a lot of questions and different people's interpretations. So I think Dave kind of summarized it maybe in the words of principals. You know, we're eyeing that 7 days of concluding the school year and doing our best to kind of keep things in good order without adding any confusion or need for more communication.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks, Chris. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Cian Fackler,
Yes.
Chris McCullough,
Yes.
Linda Cohen,
Yes,
Sarah Johansson,
Yes.
Bonita Lucky, yes. Cheryl Posey,
Yes.
Andrea King.
Yes, the motion carries. All right, thank you, everyone. Next on our agenda, we have annual approval of the identified official with authority item. Chase, I'll hand it back over to you for that.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'll read the script from the agenda sheet, and I have with us here today at the meeting Stacy Lackner, who this most directly impacts. At least, there's Stacy. All of a sudden, I couldn't find you. I thought she was on earlier. So I will read the script from the agenda page and then turn it back over to you, Madam Chair. And then if there are any questions, maybe Stacy can respond to those. But it's a kind of an annual designation. So I'll share the following. The Minnesota Department of Education requires that school districts must annually designate an identified official with authority to comply with the MNIT Enterprise Identity and Access Management Standard, which states that all user access rights to Minnesota state systems must be reviewed and recertified at least annually. The identified official with authority will assign job duties and authorize external users access to MDE secure systems for their local education agency. Board recommends to authorize Stacy Lackner to act as the identified official with authority for the Wayzata Public Schools. So the recommended action is approve Stacy Lackner to act as the identified official with authority for the Wayzata Public School District. And I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chase. The recommended action is before us to approve Stacy Lackner to act as the identified official with authority for the Wayzata Public School District. Is there a motion to approve?
This is Sarah. I so move and ask that we waive the reading of the resolution.
This is Linda and I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion from Chris McCullough?
No discussion.
Cian Falconer,
No discussion. Thank you.
Linda Cohen,
No discussion. I think we're in good hands with Stacy Lackner being the designated person.
yes. Sarah Johansson,
No discussion. Thanks.
Bonita Lucky,
No discussion. Agree with you, Linda. Thanks.
Cheryl Polzin.
No discussion, thanks.
All right, could the clerk please call the roll?
Chris McCullough,
Yes.
Sarah Johansson,
Yes.
Bonita Lucky, yes. Cian Falconer,
Yes.
Cheryl Posey,
Yes,
Linda Cohen,
Yes,
Andrea King.
Yes, the motion carries unanimously. Thanks, everyone. All right, our last agenda item is under Finance and Business Services. So I will hand it over to Jim Westrom to talk about our general fund budget revision.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you for letting us add this item at the last minute. As you know, we called for the sale of refunding bonds, and through that process, we need to put together a document called an official statement, or some people call it an offering statement. And one of the items that we put in that document is the most current board-approved budget. And meeting with Mert Woodard, who's in the meeting today, and Jill Schwint, and David Draskovich, and myself, we decided that it probably was important to at least approve some of the federal funding that's coming to the district to soften the financial impact of the fact that we've been operating in a pandemic this year. So I'm sharing the screen right now, and I'm not going to read through this, but basically what we've done is we've asked the board to recognize the revenue, the federal dollars that are coming to the school district, and that will provide an additional $3 million of revenue. And then we're also asking the board to adopt or revise the expenditure budget to reflect some of the savings. I'm going to share another, this is the detail. So if you look at this document, I'm thinking you can see my screen. Yep, okay. So if you look at this document, you'll see the revenue adjustments are before you. We're looking at ESSER funds, we're looking at ESSER 2 funds, and we're looking at ESSER 3 funds. These are federal dollars that are flowing to the school district to provide relief for additional expenditures that were incurred during the pandemic. And then if you look at the expenditure adjustments, obviously due to the fact that we didn't have teachers in our buildings and doing staff development activities, we saved on sub costs. In addition, we saved on sub costs just in general because we didn't provide subs when we were in a hybrid environment. Our utilities, we're seeing about $200,000 worth of savings there. Our workers' comp is about $400,000, and Jill Schwink could go into more detail if you're interested in that information. And then we saved about $20,000 in supplies, both at the elementary level and at the secondary level. So, and overall, we're looking at about 3.7 million of additional revenue that we're asking the board to adopt or to revise the budget. And we're looking at about $1.2 million worth of expenditures. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and just indicate that the recommended action is before you.
All right, thank you, Jim. The recommended action before us is to approve the updated revised general fund budget for for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
Linda Cohen, I so move.
CN Falconer, I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion from Bonita Lucky?
No discussions. Thank you.
Linda Cohen,
No, thanks.
Cheryl Polzin,
No questions. Thank you.
Chris McCullough,
Just a thanks to the team. It's a tough year and you guys are doing a great job. So appreciate your ongoing detailed look at our budget. Thanks.
Cian Falconer,
No questions. Thank you.
and Sarah Johansson.
No discussion, just again, a thanks. This is all connected to this larger, right, resale of the bonds, which we know will be beneficial to our community. So thanks to the finance department for, dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's and just making sure that we're in a good place for that.
Thank you, Sarah. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Linda Cohen,
Yes.
CN Falconer,
Yes.
Sarah Johansson,
Yes.
Cheryl Posey,
Yes.
Bonita Lucky, yes. Chris McCullough,
Yes.
Andrea King.
Yes, the motion carries unanimously. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. That concludes our special meeting for Tuesday, June 1st, 2021. Is there a motion to adjourn?
This is Chris. I so move.
So Cheryl, I'll second.
All right. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Chris McCullough,
Yes.
Bonita Lucky, yes. Cheryl Posey,
Yes.
Sarah Johansson,
Yes.
CN Falconer,
Yes.
Linda Cohen,
Yes.
Andrea King.
Yes, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.